In this video, I'm going to go over how to find the x-intercepts of something that's in vertex form. Now, these two are in vertex form, but they're kind of special cases. So here is the general form. That's plus sign plus k. That's the general form for something in vertex form. When the vertex is h comma k. So remember, this is like this many units right. So that's why h is positive over here. This is k units up, and that's why k is positive over here. All right. So these two are special cases. Obviously, the y is in the weird place right there. But these are special cases for vertex form. Basically, on this one, there's no a, and there's no plus or minus on the outside, so there's no k. All right. And this one, there's no a on the outside, but there's also no h. So it's like a x plus 0. So it's kind of like x plus 0 squared is kind of what that is, because this just simplifies down to x squared. Anyway, we are going to find the x-intercepts, and you kind of have already done this before when we graphed them. So if you were to graph this one, it would be 36 units down. So way down here, negative 36. And it opens upwards because this is positive. So basically we're saying that this thing opens like that, and that x-intercept and that x-intercept are what we're trying to find here. All right. And this one is kind of a weird case. I'll show you the graph on that one in a little bit. So the way you find an x-intercept, it's always the same. All right. To find an x-intercept, you have to replace the y with a 0. All right, because like if we were looking at these, this graph I drew that I drew here, we're trying to find that x value, but we do know the y value at those two spots. All right, the y value at those spots is 0. That's why we're going to plug in 0 for y, because it's up and down 0. All right, so I'm going to plug in 0 for y, so I'll just replace it with a 0 like that. And then to solve this for x, we're just going to plus 36. So you add 36 to both sides. All right, and that gives you x squared equals 36. Now this says x squared is equal to 36. So to solve it, we're going to have to do the opposite of squaring, which for most cases is to take the square root. So we're going to square root both sides. All right. And this is going to give us x equals, because the square root and the square kind of cancel with each other, and the square root of 36 is 6. And this is true. One of those x-intercepts over here is 6. That's where it crosses. Because if you plug in 6 for x, you're going to get 6 squared is 36. 36 minus 36 is 0. All right, but there is another x-intercept over here. And this is kind of a weird thing. You're going to be asking a lot of questions about it later, I'm sure. But when we take the square root of 36, there's actually two answers to that. One of them is positive 6. All right, so one of them is positive 6, but the other one is negative 6. All right, that's our other x value over here. And you can see that, if you square negative 6, negative 6 squared like that, and then you have this minus 36 here. Well, if you square that, negative 6 times negative 6, that does equal 36. And so that also gives you 0. That's why most of these, all right, you'll see here in a second what I mean by most. That's why most of these are going to have two answers, because they have literally two places where they cross the x-axis. All right. Now on this one, kind of a funkier case. Obviously because the y is on the right side, but that doesn't matter. So I'm going to replace the y with a 0, like I did over here. But to solve this equation, and you might actually know the answer before I even ask it, but what value of x would you have to plug in here so that this whole thing equals 0? So what plus 4 gives you 0? Well, hopefully you realize that it's negative 4. All right, that's going to be our answer for x. And for this one, there's actually only going to be one answer. So over here, we square rooted both sides to get rid of the square. See, we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to square root both sides first, all right, before we can access what's inside the parentheses here. So the square root and the square are going to cancel each other out. So you're just going to be left with x plus 4. And over here, square root of 0 is 0. There's none of that plus or minus business when it comes to 0. That's why you're only going to have one answer in this case. All right, then you'll just minus 4 from both sides, and you'll get x equals negative 4, all right, like we said earlier. So in this is kind of an odd case because there's only one solution to this. And the reason that is because if we look at the graph of y equal x plus 4 squared. Now we know the graph of this should be the same as the parent function, but just shifted 4 to the left. So the graph of this is going to be right here at negative 4. The vertex is, at negative 4 comma 0. And it's going to open up like that. So in this case, all right, it only has one x-intercept. It's actually tangent to that x-axis is what we call it, or it kind of dips down and just kisses it barely. So with that one type of special case, it has one x-intercept. All right, that's good for this video. I'll give you some more here in the next video. So there's a lot of cases. I'm gonna try to go through them, but you can work the homework whenever you feel comfortable.